The Beatles made 5 trips to Hamburg in all, spread over 3 years, 1960, 1961 and 1962, organised by Allan Williams, their manager at the time, who drove them there for their first visit. Lots of other things were happening in and around Liverpool when they were back home during those 3 years, such as appearing at the Cavern Club for the first time in March 1961, but Hamburg was a vital stage in their growing up, both as people and as musicians. It was in many ways when they became the Beatles, not just in name. Until their first Hamburg trip, they had been calling themselves the Silver Beatles, but in their sound, their character, their ambitions, and their lineup. There were 5 Beatles who set off for that first trip to Hamburg on the 15th of August 1960, John Lennon, Paul McCartney and George Harrison, plus Pete Best, son of Mona Best from the Casbah Club, on drums, and Stuart Sutcliffe, a friend of John's from art college. They started playing in a small, scruffy club called the Indra, later moving to a slightly better one called the Kaiserkeller. They lived in slum conditions in an old cinema, the Bambi, all crammed in together with little privacy, working long shifts, often through the night, keeping themselves awake with pills and drink. Their first spell in Hamburg ended in late December 1960, by which time George had been deported. The authorities had discovered he was only 17, and under German law, anyone under 18 was banned from frequenting, never mind playing in, a nightclub after midnight. A few days later, Paul and Pete were also expelled, accused of setting fire to the cinema where they had been living. The following year, their second visit to Hamburg, playing at the Top 10 Club, a much better venue, lasted from April through to July. During that time, they recorded their first record, My Bonnie, but only as a backing group for the singer Tony Sheridan. Louise Harrison, George's mother, was always a keen supporter of the Beatles. Unlike John's aunt, Mimi, Louise encouraged her son with his musical interests and went to many of their early performances. They often rehearsed at George's house when Mimi wouldn't allow them into her house. She approved of George going to Hamburg, despite his tender years. John got on well with Mrs. Harrison, fooled around when he was in her house, making silly jokes. In Hamburg, he took it upon himself, as the leader of the group, to write and tell her that all was well in Hamburg and that George had got a new shirt. John's letter to Mrs. Harrison, with all the wordplay, deliberate misspellings and pretend German accent, shows how close they were. George's father was a bus driver. Peter was one of George's 2 older brothers. Letter 4. To Mrs. Harrison, probably 1960.
Dear Mrs. Horminsoon, R is very handsome to been in Hamburg and having some great day. I hope you are very hopping in England and are soon to go to Canada. Who are Mr. Harmigeld, eh? Him bus very good still yet? I hope Peter is still selling him motorbikes and things and every one a winner. We've might stag yet another moons in Hitler and have many monies and we might spend him too. Are you happies with no sun in your houses? Are you? I think you will like George's when he come home to England because him have a new shirt. I will close now, as I am finishing now, so I will end it all. Happy Christ Mouses. Love, John. Kiss, 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 kiss.
Sometime in 1961, John wrote a brief biographical note about his life so far. It is not clear exactly when, though he gives his age as 20. So it must have been before his 21st birthday in October 1961. He mentions a second visit to Hamburg, and that they had returned in 1961 to the Top 10, so presumably it was written in the summer of 1961. It would appear to have been written while he was in Germany, judging by the contents and the European-style squared notepaper. Possibly it was compiled at the request of a local German journalist, or Polydor, the recording company making My Bonnie. He mentions Scotland and touring with a British singer, without naming Johnny Gentle, which suggests that he assumed the Germans would not have heard of him. In this little potted biography, John says he went to a grammar school, spelt with an E, so bad mouth.